Hello everyone, welcome. My name is RJ Pestridge. Welcome to part 2 of this video, and thank you for following me. I really appreciate also your subscription to my channel. It really does help me a lot. Now, what's going to happen basically? I'm just going to quickly run through a quick explanation of what is going on, and then we're going to actually go through the what I'm about to talk about in more detail, like a step by step, and talk about what the reason is I've chosen to do the way I've done it. So basically, there is something in Windows 10 by design that actually limits your PC. When I say limits your PC, it's sort of like the performance of your CPU, and what your GPU is capable of as well. There is a relationship between the GPU and the CPU, and if your CPU is overheating, it will actually prevent your GPU from getting involved, because obviously Windows 10 doesn't want a fire on its hand, and if your CPU is already at like 100 degrees, it doesn't want your GPU getting any hotter to cause a fire. So it will actually limit what the GPU can do. So especially if you're using this for flight simulation and you find that you're not getting the graphical output you should be getting, well, it could be your CPU is actually on its knees, begging for its life, and the GPU is trying to throw it a bone by going, mate, we're just going to do so much here. Utilization of your GPU should be between 50 to 70% on a working CPU, okay? If it's less than that, man, your GPU, if it's like around 10%, 11%, then your GPU might be idling, your CPU might be idling your GPU. Okay. At the end of the day, our hardware of our PC is like a human body, isn't it? The CPU is like the brain, GPU is like the heart, memory is like our memory, and sort of like your motherboard is like the skeletal structure of your body. These components, basically, just like us, have a lifespan. You only have so many heartbeats available in your heart before it's going to wither and die. And it's the same with your CPU. It's only going to last so long at default level. And when I say default level, I mean the base speed level. So my CPU here is designed at its base speed to run at 3.10 gigahertz. Okay, so that's without it being overclocked or boosted. Well, excuse me. My CPU currently can't actually be overclocked by design, but it can be boosted, and I boost it to its maximum speed, which is 3.19. Not a great deal, a lot more, but that's the maximum it'll ever be, even in the boosted speed mode. But that is dependent on the power options of the Windows 10 setting here. So right now I'm in ultimate performance, but if I put it to power saver, the speed on that goes right down to its basic level. It's like it doesn't need to be ramped up running all the time at 3.19 gigahertz, or if yours is ramped up to 5 gigahertz, that doesn't need to be happening all the time, because if you just turned on your PC and you want to browse the internet, man, Pornhub doesn't take 5 gigahertz to run. Do you know what I mean? Websites that you might visit don't take 5 gigahertz to run. So the power saver option mode is most ideal for general use of your PC. And of course, if you want the beast to be unlocked, you would click Ultimate Performance, and suddenly it's ramping itself back up again. Now, doing this will basically, I'm talking about the lifespan here now of your components. Your CPU will burn out one day. What day that will come is dependent on how you use it. If you overclock your CPU, it's going to shorten its lifespan. If you can continually run it at 5 gigahertz or whatever overclock speed you got going, you are going to be shortening it even more. And then as it sort of starts to die, it's going to overheat, or as it's running at 5 gigahertz, it's going to run hot anyway. So you have to make sure your cooling system is in check, but it's going to start to overheat as it dies. And then one day it's just going to go bye-bye. And then that's it. Never turn back on again, effectively. So what we're doing here, I'm opening up here, is a way for you to extend the CPU life. Now, it's also a way for you to get more power from your CPU. So we're not just sort of extending the lifespan of your components, but also how to have it at a boosted speed without the need to overclock, okay? Because it's in there by design, okay? You just need to pull it out. So, one thing to note though, first off, I'm dead against overclocking. I really am. For the short-term gain you receive, there is a long-term con basically where you're gonna have to cash that check eventually for your CPU dying, and you're doing it sooner by overclocking. Okay, no matter what kind of cooling system you've got going on inside, if you overclock, you're shortening the life of that CPU. Okay, if you can't afford to replace it, then don't overclock it. Boosting it, on the other hand, is different. But the other thing I want to talk about is cooling system. Right now, when I first started to do this on my main PC, it actually unearthed that my cooling system wasn't actually working correctly. Your CPU should be quite cool. So like your CPU should actually always kind of be between temperatures of 50 to 70 degrees when you're running it sweating, right? So right now mine's kind of averaging around 50 here. And that's perfectly normal for the use I'm doing. on a PC where you're not actually doing much, it should actually be lower. It should be like 25 to 35. But if it's ever going beyond 80 degrees, your CPU, there's something wrong with that, and you need to address it. It should only ever really hover around the 70s, really, if you're using it for flight simulation. Excuse me. I've got no way of editing these out, by the way. Sorry. And therefore, it's like flight simulation, by the way, is very intensive on the CPU. So if your CPU is running 80, 90, 100 degrees, you need to do this. Okay, you need to check your cooling system as well, by the way. Anyway, back to what I was saying here. What we want to do is we want to avoid your CPU limiting your GPU. Now, I'm going to talk about that in a different video. That's not what we're here for. That will be coming in a future video. But this one, we're talking about the default power plans here, and these are them. These are the default ones. So no matter which one you're choosing here, you're limiting your PC, because think about how many different combinations of CPU and GPU there are. How many different and if these power plans, by the way, which are designed to feed power from your power unit to your components on your motherboard, if it was designed based on the hardware, like so per GPU, per CPU, man, there would be millions of these plans available, and you just basically search for your one that matches, and then it would already have a pre-configured to get the best out of it. At the end of the day, Microsoft do not know what GPU or CPU you're using, so they've created these averaged profiles. Okay, so power saver, yes, it's saving you power. It's running down the gigahertz of your CPU. It's doing other things as well, like putting your desktop into sleep mode or after so long, or maybe even turning your hard disk drive off, after so long to save power. Not something you ever want to do in flight simulation. If you're running the power saver option here, you basically get off that, man, and choose high performance or choose ultimate performance. But at the end of the day, you could also create your own power plan. You could basically and call it, for whatever purpose you're watching this video for. I'm using it for flight simulation, so I'm going to call it flight simulation, and click on next. And make sure these say never, both of them, and then create. And now we've got a flight simulation profile here. Okay, and if you ever want to just delete it and get rid of it, go to change, delete this plan. It won't allow you to delete an active plan. So as you see here, there's no delete button here. But I can go in and just click delete, and now it's deleted that plan. And it's just simple as that. And I really do recommend, before moving on in this video, you actually create a power plan for the purpose of this video you're watching, and don't mess with these three power plans here. So if I go back to power plan, I'll type in flight simulation, click next and create. Now I'm not going to have to play with these three, because these three are default, by the way. Okay, and by default, the Windows 10 system is limiting what your CPU can do and what your GPU is capable of, by the options that they have. So if we actually, I mean, if we go into these options here, you can see that there's only like 10 different ones here. And each one, I mean, there's only about 30, there's about 16, sorry, options here available for you to play with. Okay, so this is a PC. This is what you should see here. Okay, and that's the default one, you know. But if we go in now to the folder in my Discord and we enable all advanced power settings, run that as admin, it was successful, it says. And we go back into this, change advanced. Suddenly, look at this. Whoa, there's loads more. Look at all that. And all you've done is unlocked basically what's already there. So that's all that's happened. Okay, so we can now go, oh, okay. And again, these are all default settings. You know, you don't need to play with these like that much. But we will, by the way. So the other thing as well is in that folder, it says enable all power plans. If you run that one, all it does is, if we come out of this and go back in, doubles all your plans. So you've got now 2 ultimate performance, 2 power saver plans going on here. So basically what you're going to do now is go, right, oh, okay, so we don't need 2 of everything, by the way. So we're going to delete the ones that we don't need. So if we delete that one, delete, restore. Oh, what am I changing? I don't want to change it. Oh, get off. Delete. Move this out of the way. It's a bit easier. So we got 2 high performance here. Got to find the copy. There it is, and delete. And there we go. And then that's it. Basically, we just deleted it. Obviously, we don't want to actually delete that. So, but that's how you get rid of the unnecessary ones. Okay. So let me just re-enable that. And power options, and they're back. Right, so but obviously I don't want I don't want 2 duplicates of high performance. Don't need it. And ultimate performance, we don't need 2 of them, so we'll delete that one. I want to keep the power saver plan, and it's this one that we're going to be changing. So let me just do initial changes, because I never want my display to be turned off, and I never want my computer to be put to sleep. This is probably a lot of people's issues here, where this has been set to 15 minutes, and it will go to sleep after 15 minutes. Your PC will, you know. So, yeah. But unfortunately, there we go. So that's that. Actually, no, you know what? I don't even need that plan, because we're going to be using the flight simulation one I've just remembered. So yeah, we don't need that. But that basically just duplicates all your options. Okay, so there we go. Right, so that's basically how you unlock all your plans and how you unlock all your advanced features. But let's get into it, shall we? Right, so again, never turn off the display, never put your computer to sleep. And here we are. Very sorry if it's kind of tiny. It doesn't actually open up anymore. Sorry. But basically, the hard disk drive here, you want to set your maximum power level to 100. I never want my hard disk to be turned off. And the hard disk burst time, ignore. You can leave a lot of this basically on default. A lot of this will be fine on default. ACHI power, no, not that one. Oh, it's not on hard disk, that's why. Basically that can go to maximum performance. Desktop background, slideshow, definitely want that paused. If you're an OBS user, you will find on active, OBS will basically not perform for you. Wireless, we want the maximum performance there. A lot of this is kind of the reverse thinking, okay? So maximum performance tends to mean, low numbers, whereas maximum like graphics or something, you'll be using high numbers. It's kind of like the other way thinking. So yeah, allow away mode policy. No, I don't want my PC going to sleep without me knowing it or without me putting it in. So disable basically anything and everything in the sleep option. I don't want my PC falling asleep. I don't want it to be able to put to sleep. So where it says system unattended sleep out time, I just put in 999 minutes. That basically means if I don't touch my system for 999 minutes, which I'll never do, then it's not going to go to sleep. But it don't matter because sleep mode's deactivated anyway. You know what I mean? So it kind of makes no difference. Hibernate after never. Allow system required policy. No. Allow system required policy. Allow wake timers. No. I don't want this thing to be woken up or put to sleep by anybody but me. And remote. No. So that's disabled a lot of stuff, right? That's the sleep one. USB settings. HUB. So USB basically how like your hooked up USB things will behave, and I always kind of choose the lower power saving options here. But again, most of this is all fine. Selective to suspend, I actually disable that because I don't want my USBs to be suspended in case I'm using it, like, whatever. Deep sleep enabled, turn that off. Disabled. Processor resiliency, whatever it says, sorry, that's fine. Resiliency, I can't pronounce it. I've got a cold, sorry. Right, execution required power request timeouts, that's all fine on default. Interrupt steering settings, this is not for steering wheel, by the way. This is nothing to do with a steering wheel, so don't think that. It's about your hard drive. Again, if you actually hover on these things, it actually tells you what it is. So if we go interrupt steering here and you just hover on it, it will actually tell you what it does. Okay. What it should do, actually. It did on my old PC, I'll tell you that now. Anyway, I don't know why it's not, but oh, there we go. Yeah, there it is. So if you hover over it, there you go. It does do it. It tells you kind of like what you're going to use, what for. So power button is for shutdown. Enable forced shutdown is off. Sleep button is active to sleep. Do nothing. And lid open action. Do nothing. PCI Express. That's the one I was looking for before. I want to turn that off. And process power management. Now, a lot of this here is self-explanatory. I'm not going to go into great detail about this, but basically this is how you limit your cores if you're not going to be using them. So because like I do this to the power saving option and then just basically kind of undo a couple of these, but if you basically take the power saving configuration and readjust it for maximum power, then it will by default open up in a low power state, but then when it recognizes it needs it, it will ramp it up, and you can do that through these options here. Okay, again, there's so many of them that this video would be about 10 hours long if I did it, because you can see here I'm scrolling. There's just so many there. Okay, it's a lot more detailed. Maybe I'll do a separate video in the future if there's a lot of cry out for it, but a lot of it's self-explanatory and it kind of tells you anyway when you hover over it, so you can use your best judgment on what you need to set there in order to do that. But I suggest if you want to enable your PC to sort of manually adjust your CPU depending on what you're going to do so it can really extend the life of your PC, then do it on the power saving option, and then all you have to do is either transfer those settings across to your new plan or just use your power saving plan. But it's not a power saving plan, it's kind of like a one thing fits all plan. And then the ultimate performance will just basically give you what you need when you need it. Graphic settings here, the preference is for low power. Display, turn off display, never. Advanced color quality bias, yes. Visual quality bias. Console lock display timeout. It don't matter because it's not going to do that anyway. Adaptive display, we want yes to on. Allow display required policy, yes. Presence aware power behavior. Again, this is to do with parking your cores, so I won't go through that fully. If I need to do it in another video, I will. When sharing media, basically prevent idling to sleep. When you're playing back the video, you want the best performance, and you want the optimize that video quality, and that's basically it. Those are your options. Now, again, there's a lot of process power management options here, okay, and just hovering over will tell you exactly what you're doing, okay. So just follow those and enjoy your new unlocked PC, giving you the boost when you need it, and sort of running the PC down when you don't need it, you know. And this is basically preventing your CPU as well from taking control of your GPU, because what happens when your CPU gets overheated is it actually limits your GPU. Your CPU will never get overheated now because it's never going to be running maximum all the time. It's going to be ramping up and ramping down when needed, and therefore it's not going to lock out your GPU. So that's basically it. In the next video, I'm going to show you how you can how you actually unlock, and I'll give you the keys in the next video. But really need to tell you this, really important, okay? You must have, okay, good cooling system in your PC, okay? Because if your cooling system is old, it's not working 100%, then you will notice the change and your temperatures will start to increase, okay? You really need good cooling system, okay? When I first did this, it showed me that my coolant was actually not performing like it should. You know, it wasn't cooling down my CPU. And so my CPU was just constantly overheating, even though I've got a really good cooling system inside. I replaced my cooling system, and that's when, you know, things started to work. And it did it as expected. So really get good cooling system, okay? Check all that before you do this. But this basically controls your CPU and GPU. So you're unlocking the full potential and the longevity of your CPU. Okay, and in the next video, I'm going to give you those keys, show you exactly, well, you kind of already know, but show you exactly how to do it in terms of activating them. And thank you so much for hitting that subscribe button. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.